So Rudy Giuliani got spanked pretty hard in D.C. Circuit Court today by a judge named Beryl Howell. This is the civil lawsuit brought against him by Ruby Freeman and her daughter Shay because Rudy had singled them out and accused them of all kinds of things with regard to the 2020 election and ballot counting in Atlanta, Georgia. He'd accused them of passing around USB ports, stuffing ballot boxes, all kinds of things. And those accusations, and he identified them by name, and those accusations basically ruined their lives, like completely ruined their lives. We saw Ruby's daughter, Shay, testify before the January 6th committee about the things that they endured. And we saw footage during that hearing of Ruby Freeman herself testifying during deposition. Hang on one second. And so they sued Rudy Giuliani for defamation as a result of that stuff. And this is also part of the criminal cases in Georgia. It's part of the stuff that Giuliani is indicted for in Georgia, along with co-defendants Harrison Floyd and Trevion Cootie, the woman who was Kanye West's former publicist or something, when she took Ruby Freeman to a police station and basically threatened her. And then Donald Trump brought up Ruby Freeman's name during his early January phone call in 2021 with Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. He mentioned her name 20 times during that phone call. And he said that she was responsible for 18,000 fraudulent ballots. It was probably 56,000 fraudulent ballots, but it's at least 18,000 fraudulent ballots. And he said, she stuffed the ballot boxes. Let's face it, Brad. And, so they were singled out by the President of the United States based on bullshit from Rudy Giuliani. And so they had a pretty good case. Well, during the course of this civil litigation, Rudy Giuliani kept refusing to comply with discovery requests. He kept refusing to produce documents and other things that he was required to produce. And so when that happens, you file a motion to compel further production of discovery. And within a motion to compel, very frequently, you will also ask that the other side be sanctioned because of their misbehavior or their abuse of the discovery code. And very frequently, those sanctions are monetary. So this was at least the second motion to compel that Ruby Freeman and her daughter Shay had filed against Rudy Giuliani. The first one, Rudy was ordered to pay $132,000. And in this one, he was ordered to pay $90,000, give or take. That's not the important part of this motion. The important part of this motion is another kind of sanction that Ruby Freeman and her attorneys asked for. They asked for what's called a terminating sanction. What's a terminating sanction? A terminating sanction is an order from the judge that prevents the defendant from doing something further in the case in order to establish their innocence or establish that they're not liable for damages or things like that. So the important paragraph is the third one. It's ordered that a default judgment will be entered against defendant Rudy Giuliani on his liability for plaintiff's defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, civil conspiracy. The conspiracy was between Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani, and punitive damages. What does that mean? That means that the issue of liability in this case has now been decided against Rudy Giuliani. In civil cases, you're dealing with two components, liability and damages. Damages is money. Liability is whose fault is this? Or what did this person do? Well, liability has now been decided. And in civil litigation, you can't get to damages until you have proved liability. Well, the judge just looked at Rudy Giuliani and said, you've been jerking these folks around so long on discovery, I'm finding in their favor on the issue of liability as a sanction against you. You no longer get to defend yourself against the issue of liability in this case. So now that liability has been decided, there will now come a very short trial only on the issue of damages. How much money is he going to have to pay them for what he did to their lives. It is not going to be an insignificant amount. I don't know yet if that's going to be decided by a jury or by the judge. I would imagine they're going to want that decided by a DC jury, is my guess. So, but that's going to be the next step. But that's the important part of this order, not the dollar amount. The dollar amount, who cares? The important part is that Rudy Giuliani is no longer able to defend himself against the factual allegations in this case. The judge decided them today in their favor against Rudy Giuliani.